Yes.
That really did hurt more than I thought it did. It's funny.
Well, what I noticed there was
your pelvic bone just went.
My what?
I'm seeing your pelvic bone.
Why are you gonna make it dirty?
And your hip, pelvic and hip bone.
Let's give a big round of applause for the band. These guys are literally puffs of smoke the second they finish our song. Poof. Just hovering guitars in midair. Clank. Get off stage so fast. I was noticing when you jumped that what happened was your fabulous mop of black hair just went.
I still can't get over the fact that I jumped and Rob, all I could think about was my pelvic bone.
If you fall from a tall space and you land on your feet, that's going to damage your pelvic bone. But I'm not a doctor. But I've played one.
Apparently you know something about pelvic bones.
This doesn't shock me that much because remember when you had your baby and Rob, his first words were, "Oh, congratulations! How's your pelvic bone?" Like that's his first concern.
In all fairness, that is his God-given birth name.
Pelvic bone.
Pelvic bone Cohen.
It's nice to know that you're worried about
Pelvic Bowen.
What was it?
See what I did there?
Pelvic Cohen.
I just combined Cohen and Bone to Pelvic Bowen.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Hey Denver, what's going on?
Hey Denver.
I often wonder when we come out to do this, is it like, oh cool, it's their panel, or oh balls, we gotta watch these guys on stage again. Like we've been on stage every minute for the last 72 hours. Why, thank you. I hope it's a positive.
Let's stay away from the pelvic bone for the rest of the time.
Sorry guys, sorry about the pelvic bone already.
There's nothing to be sorry about. We'll talk about
I was
it
worried
later.
about your pelvic bone, whatever.
It may be sore, it may need a massage. We'll talk about it in the green room.
But you know, on that note, welcome to the show, the sitcom, which is the Matt, Rob, and Rich show.
Featuring my pelvic bone.
Every week we get the question, every convention we get the question, if you three had a show, what would it be called? And we can never remember week to week, but we always know it ends, it's something, and the chest. It's our like, Matt's always.
Which I think after today will be now Rob, Rich, and the pelvic bone.
Pelvis bone, yeah. Pelvis bone.
Pelvic bone. That's the name of my new band, my offshoot band. It's Pelvic Bone. We're really excited. We're doing a North American tour in a few months. But anyways,
it's funny, but you know what that reminds me of, and you know what I'm going to say.
I don't.
When we're in Rome.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share a little story with you guys real quick. We were in Rome, my wife was with us, and this will let you in. I'll tell you what kind of woman my wife is. She's just one of us right away. She hops in the van, we're all getting ready to go to the venue, and she jumps in and sits awkwardly down on a seat, and she goes, "Oh, my vagina bone."
And that was one of the funniest things I had ever heard.
And Rob almost changed Loud and Swain to the vagina bones.
No, it was a close second.
In that moment.
But yeah, it made me just think she was so funny and kind of really attractive at the same time. I was like, oh my God, she's really funny. That's kind of hot. Is there such a thing? I had all three of those thoughts at the same time.
When Rob's coveting other men's wives, there's something he does every time, and it
I'm honest about it.
It tickles me. But you always do that stutter, like. So I thought you were so funny, and it was kind of hot, and that's when I know it's true.
Was the red pants story?
Yeah, you want to tell the red pants? Tell the Denver people the red pants story.
Speaking of loving everybody else's wife, go for it.
I'm a loving person. I like to love.
Wives
belong to other men. I was at Comic-Con with Richard. We were staying at a hotel, and I was downstairs in the lobby waiting for him. And his wife was also staying there, but I thought she was at work. Anyway, she was. I looked, and there was a woman wearing really nice-looking red trousers, and she really had a nice bottom. Looked really good in those trousers, and so I was like, oh my God, I can't wait till when Rich comes down, I can have this hot girl that's like, checking in there, checking out. Turned out it was Rich's wife. And I was like, oh, what have I done? Oh God, I've coveted my friend's wife. And literally I was guilt-stricken. I was like, I didn't want her to see me. And then Rich gets out of the elevator like, what are we doing? And I was like, God, I'm so sorry. I was lusting after your wife, but I didn't know it was her.
That was a weekend of firsts for us. We were down there at Comic-Con hosting a live web coverage, and Rob, that was the first time he covered my wife, and then it was also the first time that I established this screwing with Rob via text, which worked like a charm right out of the gate, so we've stuck with it. I like to stick with what works. But it was, Rob and I, we knew each other, but not that well. It was kind of our first time really working with each other and playing off each other comedically. And I was in my room, kind of getting dressed, about to go to the elevator, and we had to be down at 9 o'clock. It was like 5 to 9. So I just sent Rob a text going, "Where are you? Question mark, knowing that would throw him into a tizzy. I just knew that, even though I wasn't where I was supposed to be, I just did that.
Because we had to be working, it was like at 9. And I was enjoying coffee, reading the paper, and I was like, oh, God. Where are you? Where am I supposed to be? I panicked. Oh, God, they're going to fire me.
And the elevator door's open, I come out, you look all frantic. What's going on, Robbie?
That was Friday. Saturday was when I coveted his wife. It was not a good weekend for me.
But a weekend of firsts, nonetheless. Speaking of firsts, let's take our first question, shall we? Right over here.
Hi, Richard. As you know, my friend calls you the Stallion.
Right, as she should. First I've heard of this.
My question is for Rob and Matt.
I always called Rich the mini horse, but you...
The Shetland.
My question for Rob and Matt, what do you guys think, what animals do you think would represent you guys?
Well, I know what Matt's going to say. I know where Matt's going to go with this. Matthew, you want to do your thing?
I believe I'm represented best by the gooey duck.
If you don't know what it is, pull out your phones. Matt, spell it for him. She knows what it is.
It's so gross.
It's gross.
And in no way is that supposed to be an inappropriate reference whatsoever. I like seafood, especially large clams. I don't know.
Oh, so gross.
It's not that gross. How do you think the gooey duck feels when you talk about him like that?
Gross.
I bet the gooey duck doesn't sit around and is like, if I was one human, I'd be Rob Benedict, and his friends are like, ugh.
All right, fine. So I'm not popular with the gooey ducks.
Wait. Egg on your face if at the next photo op you're like, next, oh, hey little fella.
Gooey duck.
All I'm saying is give gooey ducks a chance. Give gooey ducks a chance, guys.
I think we've decided that I'm the character from the movie Ice Age.
You're the squirrel from Ice Age.
Squirrel from Ice Age. I'm gonna be Squirrel from Ice Age.
I could just see you hanging on that giant acorn.
Thank you.
It's one of those things where that came out at some other panel years ago, and we were all, they were describing us as various cartoon characters or something, and they did me and they did Matt, and then they did Rob, and everybody, including us, were like, oh, that's spot on. That's actually great. That's actually, no joke, that's legit. You are the squirrel from Ice Age. Anyway, there. Now you know.
Thank you.
Robbie?
Ma'am?
Hello. So I'm a huge fan of Band of Brothers, and so my question to you, obviously, what was it like to play a character in such a huge series that had such a huge historical meaning, and was it like overwhelming? Scary?
You get that kind of, getting the job was cool. When you're an actor, you audition for a job, and that's in a cool project, and you get it. That's a great experience, and then the sort of reality hits you of like, oh wow, I got to do this huge thing, and it's going to be bigger than anything I've attempted. But what was big about that was playing real people. That was the challenge there. Because the enormity of the shoot and set, really most of that weight falls on the production crew more so than the actors. We are told where to go and what to do, and it's a pretty easy road in terms of getting there and getting prepared to do your thing. It's the playing of a real person that presents itself with a bunch of challenges, right? Because this really happened, the war really happened, these men really did what they did. We were portraying actual events, and done by actual guys who were just normal guys, and the goal was to not Hollywood it up and not over dramatize it and not make it seem overly poetic, because it was intense enough just to be, the honesty was enough story, you know what I mean? So I think the overreaching goal for all of us was just to sort of get out of the way, get Rich Speight or the actor Rich, that mindset out, and just be sure that you're honest to what they did. And that's not just a me thing, it was an everybody thing. We had people who, if your veteran was still alive, you would be in constant contact with your veteran about every scene you would do. The scripts come out, Rick Gomez would call the Luz family, Jimmy Matteo would call Percante, Donnie Wahlberg would call Lipton, Damian Lewis would call Winters, and they would go over these scenes and talk about not necessarily the dialogue as much, but like, what happened on this night march? What happened during this event? Does this make sense to you? Does this seem right? You know, there's a couple of moments that we would, Spielberg and Hanks were wise enough to understand that the directors who come in to do one episode wouldn't know as much about the characters as we would, who were sort of embodying them for the whole boot camp and shoot. So it was on us to sort of be sure that those were taken seriously. For example, Donnie Wahlberg one time showed up on set and took himself out of a scene. He had dialogue and he said, I can't be in the scene. I'm not in this march. The director's like, your script, you don't want dialogue in this march. You're supposed to talk. He's like, you can give the dialogue to somebody else. Lipton didn't do the march. I just talked to him. He was not on this night march, so I'm not in the scene. Actors don't take themselves out of scenes. That's not the goal of an actor, to not be on camera. It was a very rare situation that happened. And so, and for my character, there's a lot of concern about establishing him. It's harder to establish the characters who had passed away because you couldn't talk to them, you couldn't interview them and find out their stories. And these were young men who were never married, so for the most part, so you didn't have wives to refer to. You're kind of flying blind a little bit. And I was
You talked to his family.
I did. I contacted his family. Interesting, and I'll make it very brief, but I contacted the family, and that was hard to do back then because the internet existed, but it was not as functional as it is now. And the character I played, his last name was Muck, and in the script he said he was from Florida. I called Don Malarkey, who was the actual veteran, Don Malarkey, and he said, no, he's from upstate New York, Tonawanda. So I'm like, huh. So I wanted to find the family, so I just went to every muck in the phone book in Tonawanda, called these families, and none of them knew what I was talking about, which I thought was odd because your last name was Muck. I mean, how hard could it be to narrow down the mucks? So then, in a last-ditch effort, I emailed the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Tonawanda and explained what I was doing and just asked for any assistance. And then I went off to England, did boot camp, and 2 weeks later came out of boot camp and had an email from a woman saying, my name is Eileen O'Hara, I'm the niece of Skip Muck. The city said you wanted to talk to me. So I called her and I said, yeah, we're doing this thing. We're doing Band of Brothers, we're making a movie out of the book, and I'm playing your uncle. And I just wanted to sort of pick your guys' brain about, what he was like. And she said, what book? I said, well, there's a book, Band of Brothers. The whole company your brother was served in, and he's featured heavily in this book. Like, oh my God, we had no idea. We haven't heard from the government since we got a Western Union telegram. We didn't know how he died. We didn't know where he's buried. We didn't know anything about this. Yeah, it was intense, and I'm some actor on the other end of the phone going, oh, okay, well, and his sister was super close to him. They were super close. And so she was devastated. So I mailed them the book. I said, I'm not going to tell you the story. Read the book. Get to know the men, and then let's talk. So they read the book and called me back, and I developed a rapport with them. And so we started sending back all this information with each other. They were sending me all these letters that copies of letters that he'd sent, letters that never got opened because they were marked deceased and sent back home. And one of the coolest things was, they told me all these stories, and I went to the director of episode 7, David Frankel, and I said, listen, Muck doesn't have a lot of real estate to play with here because we don't know a lot about him, but I got this letter that's really interesting about him swimming the Niagara River. His sister just told me the story in this letter, wrote this story. And he goes, great, let's sit you in a foxhole and you tell the story. So that story of me talking about swimming the Niagara River is just it's not in the script, it's just a letter that was written to me by the sister that I sat and I said in the foxhole. And the woman I referred to as his girlfriend, Faye Tanner, was a real person referred to in the letter. So when the series came out, Faye Tanner watched the series, hadn't spoken to the family since Skip died. Contacted the family, sent them back his original jump wings she had kept the whole time. We then lobbied the government to reissue all of Skip's medals to the family because they've been lost in the war. And other interesting piece of trivia, I was part of, the city of Tonawanda built a monument to Skip, and I was a speaker at the event a few years ago. And they built it to Skip Muck and Fritz Nyland, the Nyland brothers. Now the Nyland brothers may not mean anything to you, they're featured in the book Band of Brothers if you've read it. But those are the 5 brothers that Private Ryan is based on. So the Private Ryan brothers and Skip Muck, both, immortalized in pretty big World War II projects, are from this tiny little town in upstate New York. And when Skip, I found this out later, when Skip swam the Niagara River, his friends were worried about him getting rushed away by the current. So they sent, one guy went, paddled along beside him in a boat, and it was Fritz Nyland, who was the Ryan that lived. So, yeah, how about that, right? It's interesting. So they built a monument to those brothers, and to Skip Muck, and to all veterans of all wars, at the spot on the river where the boys shoved off. So there's a lot of interesting stuff came out of that series for me. And that's an example of that. So
That's amazing.
that's an awesome story.
I got nothing like that, Rich. I got nothing in my career.
Look, I mean, you get to be a part of one thing like that in your life if you're lucky.
Yeah.
I won't do anything that tops Band of Brothers in terms of that level of experience and what I took away from it. It changes the way I parent. Before, and I did that series way before I was married, but it just affected everything the way I
That's
view
a crazy
life.
That's why your kids salute when I come over.
That's
weird, they line up.
That's why they think you're the enemy. That's why when you're down, they dive in the foxhole every time you come over.
Rocks at me.
There he is.
My comparable stories. I was on Supernatural, and let me tell you the backstory. It's a long story, really. I looked like Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Good story.
There's no monument, but it's still a big deal. So, there's that. There's no letters or girlfriends and things. So, but still, I kind of look like Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So, boom.
Mic drop.
Well, young lady.
Hi there. I've mentioned this to you before. I'm actually from Tonawanda.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so cool town.
What a great segue right there.
We planned that.
My question is for all 3 of you. You all do both comedy and drama, and I'm curious which you prefer.
I really like being the funny guy in a drama. I like really acting. I don't